The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that echoed through the marble lobby like a warning bell. Rachel's mother stepped out first. No hesitation, no fear, just the click of her heels on polished stone and the kind of silence that makes powerful men reconsider their life choices. The Korean Mafia boss was already waiting. He stood in the center of the atrium, surrounded by 6 guards in black suits, each one built like they bench-pressed luxury cars for breakfast. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting sharp shadows across the sleek white marble. Everything about this place screamed money, power, and consequences. But Rachel's mother didn't flinch. She walked forward slowly, her navy blazer perfectly tailored, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo that framed her face like a crown. She carried herself like royalty, and in this moment, she was. The boss watched her approach. Then he did something no one expected. He bowed. Not a polite nod, not a business courtesy, a deep, respectful bow that made his guards freeze mid-breath. Rachel stood 3 steps behind her mother, braids swaying slightly as she stopped in place. Her eyes widened. Her pen, which she'd been tapping rhythmically against her notebook, went still. What just happened? The boss straightened slowly, his muscular frame taut beneath his designer suit. His right arm caught the light as he moved, revealing the vivid black ink of an eagle tattoo that stretched from his wrist to his shoulder. The bird's wings were spread wide, talons sharp, eyes fixed forward, a symbol of dominance. But right now, he was the one showing deference. Rachel's mother didn't smile. She didn't speak. She simply met his gaze with the kind of quiet dignity that doesn't need words to command respect. The lobby felt smaller suddenly, the sunlight sharper, the tension electric. One of the guards shifted his weight. Another cleared his throat. Rachel's heart pounded. She'd interpreted for powerful people before. CEOs, diplomats, politicians who smiled while lying through their teeth. But this was different. This was her mother standing toe-to-toe with a man who could erase someone's existence with a phone call, and he was the one bowing. Why? The boss finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. Mrs. Okonkwo, it's an honor. Rachel's mother inclined her head slightly. Mr. Kang? That was it. 2 names. No small talk. No pleasantries. The guards relaxed a fraction, sensing the moment had passed. But Rachel's mind raced. She'd been interpreting in Seoul for 2 years now, navigating high-stakes negotiations and boardroom power plays with the kind of fearless confidence that made clients pay her triple the standard rate. She was good at reading people, great at it, actually, but she'd never seen this. Her mother turned slightly, gesturing for Rachel to step forward. This is my daughter, Rachel Okonkwo. She'll be handling the interpretation. Today. Rachel moved on instinct, extending her hand professionally. Mr. Kang? He shook it firmly, his grip strong but not aggressive. His eyes lingered on her face for a moment longer than necessary, as if he were filing away details for later. The eagle tattoo flexed slightly as his hand released hers. Miss Okonkwo, he said, I've heard you're the best. I don't make mistakes, Rachel replied evenly. A flicker of something crossed his face. Amusement? Curiosity? She couldn't tell. Good, he said. We'll need that today. He turned and gestured toward the conference room on the far side of the lobby. His guards fell into formation around him like a well-rehearsed dance. Rachel's mother walked beside him, utterly unbothered. Rachel followed, her pen tapping against her thigh now, a nervous habit she couldn't quite shake when her brain was running at full speed. What was this negotiation really about? Why had her mother insisted Rachel come along? And why had the most dangerous man in Seoul bowed to a black woman with zero fear in her eyes? The questions swirled, but Rachel locked them down. She had work to do. As they entered the conference room, Sunlight flooded the space through wall-length windows overlooking the city skyline. The view was breathtaking. Seoul stretched out below them, a sprawling mix of ancient temples and modern glass towers, all bathed in bright, vivid light. But Rachel wasn't here for the view. She took her seat at the long table, opened her notebook, and clicked her pen once. Mr. Kang sat at the head of the table. His guards positioned themselves along the walls. Rachel's mother sat directly across from him, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. And Rachel? Rachel was already listening, because in rooms like this, what people didn't say mattered more than what they did. The boss leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, eyes fixed on Rachel's mother. "Shall we begin?" Rachel's mother nodded. And just like that, the game was on. If this story already has you hooked, subscribe and turn on notifications. It helps more stories like this reach the right people. Tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's continue. The first document slid across the table. Rachel picked it up without hesitation, her eyes scanning the Korean text while her brain automatically translated the legal jargon into English. Standard Import-Export Agreement. Nothing unusual, except for Clause 17. She paused, her pen tapping twice against the edge of the paper. Then she looked up. This clause states that disputes will be settled through arbitration in Busan, Rachel said, her voice calm but firm. But the original agreement drafted last month specified Seoul. Someone changed it. Mr. Kang's eyes narrowed slightly. One of his associates, a thin man in wire-rimmed glasses, leaned forward. "The document is correct as presented." Rachel didn't blink. "The document has been altered. Busan courts favor shipping companies. Seoul courts are neutral. This change benefits your side exclusively and violates the good faith negotiation clause from the preliminary meeting." The thin man's jaw tightened. "Miss Okonkwo, I assure you—" "I'm not asking for assurance," Rachel interrupted smoothly. "I'm stating a fact. Either we revert to the original venue, or we acknowledge this as a material change requiring renegotiation of payment terms." Silence. The guards along the wall remained perfectly still, but Rachel could feel their attention shift toward her. Her mother said nothing, but there was the faintest hint of approval in the way she tilted her head. Mr. Kang studied Rachel for a long moment, then gestured to the thin man. "Revert it." The associate bristled but pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly across the screen. Within seconds, a new document appeared on the tablet in front of Rachel's mother. Rachel verified the correction, nodded once, and continued reading. 3 more documents, 2 minor discrepancies, 1 intentional mistranslation that would have cost her mother's company nearly $2 million over 5 years. Rachel caught them all. By the time they reached the financing section, she'd started humming softly under her breath, a low melodic rhythm that helped her focus when the numbers got dense. Her fingers twisted one of her braids absently as she cross-referenced figures, her eyes moving between Korean and English columns with practiced precision. "This interest rate is 3 points higher than discussed," she said without looking up. Mr. Kang's associate opened his mouth to respond, but Rachel kept talking. "And before you tell me it's standard market rate, I should mention that I spoke with 3 banks this morning. Current commercial lending for this type of agreement averages 4.2%. You're asking for 7.5. That's not market rate. That's penalty rate." She finally looked up, meeting the associate's gaze directly. "So either someone made an error," she continued, "or someone is testing whether we're paying attention." The associate glanced at Mr. Kang, who remained expressionless. "Adjust it," the boss said quietly. Rachel made a note in her margin, then flipped to the next page. The negotiation continued for another hour. Each time someone tried to slip something past her, Rachel caught it. Each time tension threatened to spike into actual conflict, she diffused it with precise language and unshakable composure. At one point, two of Mr. Kang's team members began arguing in rapid Korean about liability caps, their voices rising, hands gesturing sharply. The energy in the room shifted dangerously. Rachel set down her pen. "Gentlemen," she said, her tone pleasant but commanding. "You're both right." They stopped mid-sentence. "You," she pointed to the older man, "are correct that the liability cap should account for currency fluctuation. And you," she nodded to the younger one, "are correct that the cap shouldn't exceed the value of the underlying assets. The solution is to tie the cap to a floating rate based on quarterly asset valuations, with a ceiling at 120% of current market value. That protects both sides and eliminates the argument." The two men stared at her, then the older one slowly nodded. The younger one looked at Mr. Kang, who made a small gesture of agreement. Just like that, the conflict evaporated. Rachel picked up her pen and went back to reading. Her mother allowed herself the smallest smile. When the final document was reviewed and signed, Mr. Kang stood. His guards straightened immediately. "Miss Okonkwo," he said, his voice carrying a weight it hadn't before, "you've exceeded expectations." "I do what I'm paid to do," Rachel replied, closing her notebook with a soft snap. "Most interpreters translate words," he continued. "You translate intent. That's rare." Rachel met his eyes. Rare things tend to be valuable. Something flickered across his face again. Respect, maybe, or intrigue. He extended his hand. "I'll be requesting your services again." "My schedule fills quickly," Rachel said as she shook his hand. "But I'll see what I can do." She could feel his gaze lingering even as she turned to gather her things. Her mother stood gracefully, exchanging a final nod with Mr. Kang before heading toward the exit. Rachel followed, braids swaying with each step, her pen already tucked back into her blazer pocket. As the elevator doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of Mr. Kang standing in the conference room doorway, his eagle tattoo visible as he crossed his arms. He was watching her. Not her mother this time. Her. The elevator descended, and Rachel's heartbeat finally began to slow. She'd handled herself perfectly. Professional, competent, fearless. But something about the way he'd looked at her made her uneasy. Not afraid, just aware. Aware that this wouldn't be the last time their paths crossed. 3 days later, Rachel received another call. Mr. Kang's assistant spoke in clipped, efficient Korean. "Thursday evening, 7 o'clock. Gangnam office. Your rate plus 20%. Rachel hesitated for half a second. 20% more meant something complicated was coming. "I'll be there," she said. Thursday arrived with storm clouds gathering over Seoul's skyline. Rachel arrived at the Gangnam building at 6:45, early enough to observe, but late enough not to seem eager. The office occupied the entire 20th floor. Unlike the bright, sterile conference room from before, this space felt lived in. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture worn smooth from use, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, now gray and restless under the approaching storm. Mr. Kang stood near the windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, measured tones. He wore a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing the eagle tattoo that seemed to shift and flex as he gestured. Two men sat on the leather couch, both older, both watching Rachel with undisguised curiosity as she entered. She ignored them, setting her bag down on a side table and pulling out her notebook. Mr. Kang ended his call and turned. "Miss Okonkwo, punctual as expected." "Traffic was light," she replied. He gestured to the men on the couch, Mr. Park and Mr. Choi. "They represent interests in Incheon. We're discussing a partnership." Rachel nodded, taking the chair positioned between the couch and Mr. Kang's desk. Strategic placement. She could see everyone. The meeting began smoothly enough. Import routes, distribution networks, revenue splits. But 10 minutes in, Mr. Park said something that made the temperature in the room drop 5 degrees. Rachel caught it immediately. a subtle threat wrapped in polite language, suggesting that Mr. Kang's recent expansion into Busan had created complications that required immediate resolution. She translated it word for word, keeping her voice neutral. Mr. Kang's expression didn't change, but his fingers stopped moving. He'd been turning a pen over and over in his hand, an unconscious habit. Now it went still. "Tell Mr. Park," he said quietly, "that complications are only problems for people who can't solve them." Rachel translated. Mr. Park smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He leaned back, saying something about mutual respect and understanding boundaries. Rachel translated that too, but she could feel the undercurrent now. This wasn't a partnership discussion. This was a test of dominance wrapped in business speak. Mr. Choi, who'd been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. His tone was friendly, almost jovial, as he mentioned a shipping container that had gone missing last month. Just wondering if Mr. Kang had heard anything about it. The implication was crystal clear. Rachel translated, her pen tapping once against her knee. Mr. Kang stood slowly, walking to the window. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the cityscape for a brief moment before darkness returned. "Tell them," he said without turning around, "that I've heard many things. Most of them are rumors. Rumors don't concern me unless they become facts." Rachel delivered the message. The room held its breath. Then Mr. Kang turned, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost gentle. "But facts? Facts require action. I assume we're still discussing possibilities here, not facts." It was a warning disguised as a question. Mr. Park and Mr. Choi exchanged glances. Whatever test they'd come to administer, they'd just been reminded who controlled this room. The meeting shifted after that. Concessions were made. Terms were agreed upon. By the time the two men left 30 minutes later, everything was cordial again on the surface. But Rachel had seen what lay beneath. After they departed, Mr. Kang poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter on his desk. Whiskey, amber and smooth. "You didn't hesitate," he said, not looking at her. Rachel closed her notebook. Hesitation implies uncertainty. I wasn't uncertain. Even when Mr. Park implied violence? Especially then. He turned, studying her with those dark, calculating eyes. Most interpreters would have softened it, made it sound less threatening. "You hired me to translate, not to lie." "True." He took a sip, still watching her. But courage and foolishness often look the same from a distance. Rachel stood, gathering her things. "Then I suppose you'll have to decide which one I am." She moved toward the door, but his voice stopped her. "Miss Okonkwo." She turned. "Next week, Tuesday, same time. I'm meeting with someone more dangerous than Mr. Park." His expression was unreadable. "I want you there." It wasn't a request. Rachel should have said no, should have recognized this for what it was, a path that led somewhere dark and complicated. Instead, she heard herself say, "Send me the details." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Not quite a smile. "I already have." As if on cue, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Rachel left without another word, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The elevator descended through 20 floors of steel and secrets, and she tried to ignore the way her pulse had quickened during that final exchange. Outside, the storm had arrived. Rain hammered the pavement, turning Seoul's streets into rivers of light and shadow. Rachel stood under the building's awning, waiting for her car. She pulled out her phone and opened the message from Mr. Kang's assistant. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Location to be disclosed day of. Hazard pay included. Hazard pay. Rachel stared at those two words as rain drummed overhead. Then she confirmed the appointment. Rachel's mother was waiting in the kitchen when she got home. Not cooking, not reading, just sitting at the table with a cup of tea that had long gone cold, her hands wrapped around the ceramic like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "You took another job with him," her mother said. Not a question. Rachel set her bag down slowly. "It's good money. Blood money usually is." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and unforgiving. Rachel pulled out a chair and sat across from her mother. Outside, rain continued to batter the windows of their apartment. The city lights below blurred into watercolor streaks. "He's just a client, Mom." Her mother's laugh was bitter. "Men like Kang are never just anything. They collect people the way other men collect watches, and once you're in their collection, they don't let go easily." "I can handle myself. Your father said the same thing." Her mother's voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion breaking through her, usually impenetrable composure. Right before he thought he could negotiate with powerful men who saw him as nothing more than a tool to be used and discarded. Rachel went still. Her father was a ghost in their household, a presence never discussed but always felt. She knew the basics. He died when she was 6, some kind of business deal gone wrong. But her mother had never spoken about it directly. Until now. "What happened to him?" Rachel asked quietly. Her mother's fingers tightened around the teacup. "He thought he was indispensable, thought his intelligence and skills made him valuable enough to be protected. But men in power don't protect tools, Rachel. They replace them." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her mother's face. For the first time, Rachel saw the weight of old fear there, carved into the lines around her eyes. "Kang bowed to you," Rachel said. "Why?" Her mother was silent for a long moment. Then she stood, walking to the window to stare out at the storm-soaked city. "Because 15 years ago, I had information that could have destroyed 3 families in Seoul, including his." She turned, meeting Rachel's eyes. "I chose not to use it. I walked away instead, started over, built something clean. And he respects that. He respects power that doesn't demand acknowledgement. But that doesn't make him safe, Rachel. It just makes him more dangerous. Because he understands exactly what you're worth. And men like that always find ways to make you pay your debts." Rachel felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I don't owe him anything." "Not yet." Her mother's voice was gentle now, almost pleading. "But every time you walk into his world, you take on a little more weight. And eventually, that weight becomes a chain." Rachel stood, crossing to her mother. "I'm not Dad. I see what's happening." Seeing it and escaping it are 2 different things. They stood together at the window, watching Seoul breathe beneath the storm. Rachel wanted to promise she'd be careful, that she'd stop taking Kang's calls, that she'd stay in the safe, boring world of corporate interpretation. But she couldn't. Because some part of her, some reckless part she didn't fully understand, wanted to know what came next. Wanted to see if she really was as fearless as she pretended to be. Her mother seemed to sense her hesitation. She reached out, tucking one of Rachel's braids behind her ear with infinite gentleness. "Just remember," she whispered, "that every man who's ever bowed to me has wanted something in return, and the longer they wait to collect, the higher the price becomes." Tuesday came too quickly. The location was a private restaurant in Itaewon, the kind of place with no sign on the door and reservations booked 6 months in advance. Rachel arrived to find Mr. Kang already seated in a private room, traditional low table, cushions instead of chairs. He'd changed. Not his clothes, still impeccably. Tailored, but something in his posture. Tension coiled beneath the surface, visible only in the way his fingers drummed once against the table before going still. "The party we're meeting," he said as Rachel settled across from him, "is particular about respect. Let me speak first. Only translate when I pause." "Understood." "And Miss Okonkwo?" his eyes locked onto hers. If things become uncomfortable, don't react. Just translate. That cold feeling from her mother's kitchen returned. How uncomfortable? The door slid open before he could answer. Two women entered. The first was older, maybe 60, dressed in an elegant hanbok that whispered money and tradition. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, accentuating features that must have been stunning in youth. The second was younger, mid-20s, beautiful in a calculated way, her makeup perfect, her designer dress fitting like it had been painted on. She moved with practiced grace, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. Mr. Kang stood immediately, bowing with the same depth he'd shown Rachel's mother. The older woman accepted it with a slight nod, then settled at the table. The younger woman sat beside her, hands folded demurely in her lap. "Mr. Kang," the older woman said in Korean, "thank you for agreeing to meet." Rachel translated automatically, watching the dynamics unfold. "The honor is mine, Mrs. Han," he replied. Mrs. Han smiled, but it was a political smile, all strategy and no warmth. "I believe you know my niece, Ji-woo." The younger woman looked up, meeting Mr. Kang's eyes with unmistakable intent. "We've met," he acknowledged. "Ji-woo has expressed significant interest in your family's business ventures," Mrs. Han continued, "and I believe a formal arrangement would benefit both our families considerably." Rachel's pen went still against her notebook. Arrangement. She knew exactly what that meant. Rachel translated Mrs. Han's words precisely, keeping her voice level, even as something uncomfortable twisted in her chest. Mr. Kang reached for his water glass, buying himself a moment. "Your family's reputation speaks for itself, Mrs. Han. Any alliance would be substantial." Ji-woo spoke for the first time, her voice soft but confident. "My uncle controls shipping through Incheon and Busan. My family has political connections in 3 provinces, and I graduated top of my class from Yonsei with degrees in international business and economics." She wasn't just beautiful, she was strategic. Rachel translated, watching Mr. Kang's face remain carefully neutral. "Impressive credentials," he said. "I don't believe in false modesty," Ji-woo replied, a small smile playing at her lips. "I know what I bring to a partnership. The question is whether you're interested in building something that lasts, or just maintaining what you already have. Direct, ambitious, perfectly calculated to appeal to someone like Kang." The dinner continued with carefully orchestrated conversation. Mrs. Han guided the discussion like a conductor, highlighting Ji-woo's accomplishments, mentioning family assets, dropping names of powerful allies who would look favorably on such a union. Ji-woo played her part flawlessly, demure when needed, assertive when it mattered. She laughed at appropriate moments, asked intelligent questions about Mr. Kang's operations, and made it clear she wasn't some sheltered bride looking for security. She was looking for power, and she was willing to work for it. Rachel translated every word, her pen moving automatically across the page, while her mind cataloged the performance. Because that's what this was. A performance designed to prove Ji-woo was worthy of the Kang family name. When dessert arrived, Mrs. Han excused herself to take a phone call, leaving the 3 of them at the table. Ji-woo's demeanor shifted subtly, not dramatically, but enough that, Rachel noticed, the careful deference eased slightly, replaced by something more genuine. "You must think this is very old-fashioned," she said to Mr. Kang, switching to English. "Perfect accent, American educated. Arranged meetings, family negotiations." "Tradition has value," he replied in English, his accent heavier but still clear. "Tradition is just another word for control." Ji-woo glanced at Rachel, acknowledging her presence for the first time. "No offense to your interpreter, but I imagine she understands, being a woman in rooms full of men who think they own the world." Rachel met her gaze. "I translate. I don't participate." "Smart," Ji-woo turned back to Mr. Kang. "But let me be clear about something. I'm not here because my aunt wants status or because my family needs your money. I'm here because I want to build something that matters. And I think you want the same thing. What makes you think that? Mr. Kang asked. Because you haven't said no yet. And men like, you don't waste time on things that don't interest them. She leaned forward slightly. So, I'll ask directly. Are you interested? Not in my family's connections or my credentials. In me. The air in the room changed. Rachel's pen paused mid-stroke. Mr. Kang studied Jiwoo for a long moment. You're direct. Life's too short for games. And yet, here we are, playing one. Jiwoo smiled, genuinely this time. Fair point, but at least we both know the rules. Mrs. Han returned before Mr. Kang could respond, and the conversation shifted back to polite formalities. Plans were made for a second meeting, contact information exchanged, promises of further discussion. When the Han women finally left, Rachel began gathering her things, ready to escape the tension that had settled over the evening like fog. Wait, Mr. Kang said. She stopped, hand on her bag. He poured himself another drink from the bottle that had appeared during dinner, then poured a second glass and slid it across the table toward her. I don't drink on the job, Rachel said. The job is finished. This is conversation. Rachel hesitated, then accepted the glass. The whiskey burned smooth and expensive going down. What did you think? He asked. Of what? Jiwoo. Rachel set the glass down carefully. I think she's exactly what her family promised. Intelligent, ambitious, politically valuable. Everything a marriage alliance should be. That's not what I asked. Rachel met his eyes. Then you should ask clearer questions. Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe. Or frustration. You don't approve. My approval isn't relevant. Humor me. Rachel twisted one of her braids between her fingers, considering how honest to be. She's playing the game well, better than most. She knows what she wants, and she's willing to do what it takes to get it. That's admirable, in its way. But wanting power and being built for it are different things. She's sharp enough to navigate your world. I'm just not sure she understands what it costs. Mr. Kang took a slow sip of his drink. And you do? My mother does. That's enough. He studied her for a long moment, the eagle tattoo shifting as he set down his glass. Your mother walked away from power. You keep walking toward it. Why? The question caught Rachel off guard. She'd been asking herself the same thing since that conversation in her mother's kitchen. Maybe I'm stupid, she said finally. You're many things, Miss Okonkwo. Stupid isn't one of them. Rachel stood, the moment suddenly feeling too intimate, too honest. I should go. He didn't stop her this time, but as she reached the door, his voice followed her. The next meeting with the Hans is Friday. I'll need you there. Rachel paused, hand on the doorframe. Every instinct her mother had tried to instill in her screamed to refuse. Send me the details, she said instead. Friday's meeting never happened. Instead, Rachel's phone rang at 4 a.m. Mr. Kang's assistant, voice tight with urgency. Change of plans. Mr. Kang needs you at the office immediately. There's been a development. Rachel arrived at sunrise to find the 20th floor transformed into a war room. Men in suits huddled around laptops, voices low and tense. The early morning light cut harsh angles through the windows, making everyone look skeletal and desperate. Mr. Kang stood at the far window, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand clenched into a fist against the glass. He ended the call when he saw Rachel, crossing the room in 3 long strides. Someone leaked the Busan contracts, he said without preamble. Every detail. Partners, percentages, delivery schedules. It's being shopped to our competitors as we speak. Rachel's stomach dropped. She'd interpreted those contracts personally. Her name was on the documentation. How bad? She asked. Bad enough that 3 partnerships are threatening to pull out. Worse, someone also leaked details about your mother's involvement in the original Inchin deal from 15 years ago. His eyes were dark and furious. They're painting her as a criminal facilitator, building a narrative that destroys her credibility. The room tilted slightly. Rachel grabbed the edge of a nearby desk to steady herself. My mother had nothing to do with this. I know that. You know that. But the story is already circulating. By noon, it'll be on financial blogs. By evening, legitimate news outlets will start asking questions. Rachel's mind raced. Her mother's business was built on reputation. One hint of scandal, true or not, and clients would vanish overnight. Who leaked it? She demanded. Mr. Kang's jaw tightened. We're working on that. But Rachel was already putting pieces together. The timing, the specific details chosen to cause maximum damage, the way it targeted both Kang's business interests and her mother's reputation simultaneously. The Hans, she said quietly. Mr. Kang didn't confirm or deny, but his silence was answer enough. Why? You haven't even rejected the arrangement yet. Haven't accepted it either. He turned back to the window, the eagle tattoo stark against his rolled shirt sleeve. Mrs. Han is patient, but Ji-woo is ambitious. This is pressure, proof they can hurt me if I don't cooperate. And hurting you hurts me. The implications settled between them like a stone dropping into dark water. They know, Rachel said, that I value your work? Yes. That's not what I mean. Mr. Kang turned, meeting her eyes directly. I know what you mean. The moment stretched taut between them, everything unspoken suddenly screaming in the silence. One of his men approached, breaking the tension. Sir, we've traced the leak. It came from inside our own organization. Someone in accounting. Bought or blackmailed? Mr. Kang asked. Bought. Wire transfer from a shell. Company registered to Mrs. Han's nephew. Mr. Kang's expression went cold and dangerous. Find him. I want to know everything he sold and to whom. The man nodded and disappeared. Rachel forced herself to focus. What do we do about my mother? I have lawyers drafting defamation suits and PR teams preparing counter-narratives, but that takes time we don't have. He paused, calculating. Unless you let me handle this my way. What does that mean? It means I make this go away completely. No lawsuits, no public denials, just silence. But it requires leveraging relationships with people who will expect favors in return. Rachel understood immediately. You'd owe them. Yes. Debts you'd eventually have to pay. Yes. She shook her head. No, I won't let you compromise yourself for my mother's reputation. Then what do you propose? His voice was sharp with frustration. Because sitting here debating ethics while your mother's business collapses isn't helping anyone. I'll fix it myself. How? Rachel grabbed her bag, mind already working through possibilities. By doing what I do best. Finding leverage and using it. Mr. Kang caught her arm as she moved toward the elevator. Rachel. It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it stopped her completely. This isn't a boardroom negotiation, he said quietly. These people are dangerous. They've already proven they'll destroy anyone who gets in their way. Then I'll have to make sure I'm more valuable alive than destroyed. She pulled free gently but firmly. Trust me. I do. That's the problem. The elevator doors opened. Rachel stepped inside, her reflection sharp in the polished metal. Friday's meeting with the Hans, she said. Keep it scheduled. Tell them I'll be there. Rachel. The doors closed. Rachel leaned against the elevator wall as it descended, her breath coming faster now that she was alone. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. I've seen the news. Come home. But Rachel didn't go home. She went to a cafe 3 blocks away, ordered coffee she didn't drink, and made 5 phone calls. The first was to a journalist who owed her a favor from a mistranslation scandal she'd helped bury 2 years ago. The second was to a lawyer who specialized in corporate espionage. The third was to a contact at the Financial Crimes Division who'd once asked her to dinner and had been persistently friendly ever since. The fourth was to Jiwoo's former classmate from Yonsei, someone Rachel had met at a networking event and who'd had interesting things to say about Jiwoo's university ethics violations that never quite made it onto her official record. The fifth call was the hardest. She dialed Mr. Kang's direct line. He answered immediately. "Where are you?" "Working. Friday's meeting. I need you to do exactly what I say. No questions. No interference." A pause. "This is dangerous." "I know." Another pause. Longer this time. "All right. What do you need?" Rachel smiled grimly at her reflection in the cafe window. "I need you to look weak." Friday arrived with brutal sunshine that made Seoul's glass towers gleam like knives. Rachel wore red, bold, unapologetic crimson that stood out against every neutral tone in the restaurant's private room. Her braids were pulled back into an intricate updo that took 40 minutes and made her look like royalty. She arrived 15 minutes early, alone. Mrs. Han and Ji-woo were already seated, surprise flickering across their faces when Rachel entered without Mr. Kang. "Miss Okonkwo," Mrs. Han said carefully. "We were expecting—" "Mr. Kang is running late. City traffic." Rachel settled into the chair across from them, setting her leather portfolio on the table with deliberate precision. "He asked me to begin without him." Ji-woo's eyes narrowed slightly. "An interpreter starting a business meeting? Unusual. I'm more than an interpreter today." Rachel smiled pleasantly. "Today, I'm here to discuss terms." "Terms of what?" Mrs. Han's voice had cooled several degrees. Rachel opened her portfolio, pulling out a single document and sliding it across the table. "Terms of your withdrawal from negotiations with Mr. Kang's family. Effective immediately." The temperature in the room plummeted. Ji-woo reached for the document, scanning it quickly. Her perfectly composed expression cracked for just a moment. "This is a detailed accounting of the bribe paid to Mr. Kang's accounting manager, the wire transfer trail leading back to your family's shell corporation, and communications proving premeditated corporate espionage." Rachel's voice remained pleasant, conversational even. "Also included are testimonies from 3 of your Yonsei professors regarding academic dishonesty that was buried by your family's donations to the university." Mrs. Han's hand trembled slightly as she picked up the document. "How did you—" "The same way you found information to damage my mother's reputation. Except I was more thorough." Rachel leaned back in her chair. "I also have a journalist from the Korea Economic Daily waiting to publish a comprehensive exposé about political corruption in shipping contracts involving the Han family. That story runs in tomorrow's edition unless I make a phone call in the next hour telling them to kill it." Ji-woo's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "You're bluffing." "Call my bluff then. See what happens." Silence crashed over the table like a wave. Mrs. Han set down the document, her hands now perfectly steady again. Years of political maneuvering had taught her when to fold. "What do you want?" "Public retraction of all allegations against my mother's business. You'll issue a statement attributing the rumors to a misunderstanding, with an apology for any confusion caused." Rachel ticked off points on her fingers. "You'll withdraw your marriage proposal to Mr. Kang and make it clear to all relevant families that the decision was mutual and amicable. And you'll transfer the accounting manager who sold information to your family to a position in Jeju, far from Seoul, where he can't cause further damage." "And in exchange?" Mrs. Han asked. "I don't publish any of this. Your reputation remains intact. Ji-woo's career prospects remain unblemished." Rachel paused. "And you walk away understanding that Mr. Kang is not a man to be manipulated through threats against people he values." Ji-woo laughed, but there was no humor in it. "People he values? You mean you?" Rachel met her gaze directly. I mean anyone under his protection. Is that what you tell yourself? Jiwoo leaned forward, composure cracking further. That this is about business, about protection. Because I've seen the way he looks at you. And the way you pretend not to notice. Jiwoo, Mrs. Han warned. But Jiwoo wasn't finished. You think you're different, special. You're just another complication he'll eventually have to choose between. And when that choice comes, when his family demands he pick someone appropriate, someone who fits their world, you'll find out exactly how much his protection is worth. The words hit harder than Rachel wanted to admit. Mrs. Han stood abruptly. We'll agree to your terms. The statements will be released by end of business today. I'll need written confirmation. You'll have it within the hour. Mrs. Han's voice was clipped, professional again. This meeting is over. She left without another word, leaving Jiwoo still seated, staring at Rachel with something that might have been grudging respect or might have been pure hatred. For what it's worth, Jiwoo said quietly, you would have been good at this life. Smart enough, ruthless enough, but you'll never truly be part of it. Not the way he needs you to be. Then she stood and walked out, leaving Rachel alone in the private room with sunlight streaming through the windows and doubt creeping cold through her chest. Rachel pulled out her phone and made the call to the journalist. Kill the story. Send me confirmation when it's done. Then she sat in silence, waiting for her heartbeat to slow, waiting for the adrenaline to fade, waiting for the victory to feel like something other than a temporary reprieve. The door opened. Mr. Kang entered, his expression unreadable. It's done, Rachel said. They agreed to everything. He crossed the room and sat in the chair Mrs. Han had vacated. For a long moment, he just looked at her. You risked everything, he finally said. I had to. Why? Rachel twisted one of her braids, a nervous habit she couldn't break. Because someone had to prove they couldn't win by threatening people I care about. People you care about. He repeated her words carefully. Is that what I am? Rachel's breath caught. This was the moment, the question she'd been avoiding for weeks. I don't know what you are, she admitted, but I know what you're not. You're not someone I can walk away from. Mr. Kang reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The eagle tattoo stretched across his forearm, wings spread in permanent flight, then stopped trying to. 3 weeks passed before Mr. Kang called again. Not for business, not for interpretation, just a simple text at 11 at night. Rooftop, tomorrow, noon. Rachel arrived at the building in Gangnam to find the elevator already programmed to bypass every floor and go straight to the top. The doors opened onto a rooftop garden she hadn't known existed, tucked away from the city's noise, but still impossibly part of it. Seoul spread out in every direction under a cloudless sky, the Han River cutting silver through the landscape. Trees and wooden planters provided shade over a small seating area. Simple, private, completely unexpected. Mr. Kang stood near the railing, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No suit jacket, no guards. Just him, the eagle tattoo vivid in the midday light. You found my secret, he said, without turning around. Rachel approached slowly, her heels quiet on the wooden deck. I didn't know you had secrets that weren't dangerous. I have exactly one. He turned to face her. This place. I bought the building because of this rooftop. Everything else was just real estate. She studied him, searching for the angle, the strategy, the reason he'd brought her here, but his expression was open in a way she'd never seen before. Vulnerable. Why did you ask me to come? Rachel asked. Mr. Kang gestured to a small table set with tea and 2 cups. They sat, the city breathing around them. Because I need to ask you something, he said. And I need you to answer honestly, not as my interpreter, not as someone navigating power dynamics, just as yourself. Rachel's pulse quickened. All right. Jiwoo was right about one thing. He poured tea with steady hands. My family will never accept you. They'll see you as a complication, an outsider, someone who doesn't fit the carefully constructed world they've built. They'll pressure me constantly, make things difficult, perhaps even dangerous. Rachel's throat tightened, but she forced herself to stay silent. And she was also right, he continued, that I've been watching you. Since that first meeting when you corrected those contracts without fear. Since you diffused that argument with perfect precision. Since you looked at me like I was just another client and not someone who could destroy your life with a phone call. He set down the teapot and met her eyes. I value very few things in this world, Rachel. Control, respect, family loyalty, even when that loyalty costs me. But somewhere between negotiations and late-night meetings and watching you refuse to be intimidated by anything, I started valuing something else more. The world seemed to hold its breath. You, he said simply. I value you. Not your skills, not your intelligence, though both are exceptional. You, the woman who wears red to intimidate her enemies, who protects her mother fiercely, who takes risks that terrify me because you believe they're right. Rachel felt tears, threatening, and blinked them back hard. Kang, let me finish. His voice was gentle but firm. I'm not naive. I know what choosing you means. It means battles with my family. It means choosing someone they'll never approve of. It means walking away from easy alliances and political convenience. He stood, moving around the table to kneel in front of her chair. Rachel's breath stopped completely. From his pocket, he pulled a small black box. But here's what I learned watching you take down the Hans, he continued. Easy isn't worth having. Convenient doesn't keep me awake at night wondering what brilliant thing you'll say next. And approved? He smiled slightly. I've never particularly cared about approval anyway. He opened the box. Inside, a ring caught the sunlight, simple platinum band with a single diamond, elegant and understated. So I'm asking you, Rachel Okonkwo, not as a business arrangement, not as strategy. I'm asking you to marry me because you're the only person I've ever met who makes me want to be better than the man I was raised to be. Rachel stared at the ring, at this powerful man kneeling before her, at the future stretching out uncertain and complicated and terrifying. She thought about her mother's warnings, about Jiwoo's cruel accuracy, about the price of walking into this world permanently. Then she thought about the way he'd trusted her plan completely, the way he'd protected her mother without asking for anything in return, the way he looked at her like she was something rare and precious and worth every battle that would come. Yes, she whispered, then louder, stronger. Yes! He slipped the ring onto her finger, and when he stood, Rachel rose with him. They stood together at the railing, his arm around her shoulders, the eagle tattoo pressed against her skin like a brand. Below them, Seoul continued its endless rhythm. Traffic flowed. Buildings gleamed. Somewhere in that vast city, people were making deals and breaking promises and navigating the complicated dance of power and survival. But up here, for this moment, it was just them. Your family will hate this, Rachel said eventually. Probably. Your allies will question your judgment. Almost certainly. And there will be people who see me as a weakness to exploit. His arm tightened around her. Let them try. Rachel leaned into him, watching the city stretch toward the horizon. In the distance, a black car pulled up to the building. One of Kang's men emerged, scanning the street with practiced wariness before getting back inside. The world they lived in hadn't changed. The dangers hadn't disappeared. The battles waiting for them were real and ruthless. But Rachel found she wasn't afraid anymore. She twisted the ring on her finger, feeling its weight. A promise, a choice, a future written in her own hand. "So what happens now?" she asked. Kang smiled, his hand covering hers. "Now, we face it together." And somewhere, below, the city watched and waited, as it always would. But this is just the beginning. Because marrying a mafia boss is one thing. Surviving his family, that's a whole different war. If you want to see Rachel go head-to-head with Kang's mother at the engagement dinner, comment Part 2 below. And don't forget to subscribe. Things are about to get dangerous.